Hi Saksham.
Hey Sartha, what's up?
All good, all good. How about you? How's it going?
All good, man. Like I told you just before we started, I've just been stuck here at Beverly Park for the last few months. Not that it's bad or anything,
Right.
but yeah, I'm just dying to sort of meet family, meet some friends, maybe. Although in these desperate or let's just say unimaginable times, I think it's still good to go out once in a while and catch some fresh air. So I'm looking forward to that.
Sure, sure. So, have you been able to watch some football though?
I have. That's one of the good things about this lockdown. Ever since football restarted in, let's say, July, there's been a lot of football on the television. So yeah, I've watched a lot of football, more than I have ever, because we've been so
Mhm.
busy with coaching. We've been so busy working with the kids. I don't really get the free time to watch as many games as I have. So that's been a blessing in disguise.
Sure, sure. So, who's your team?
I'm a United fan.
Ah,
Although,
well done.
although, although, although my friends that will be listening to this will frown upon that. But no, yeah, I'm a United fan. I have been since I was really young.
Right.
I did have this thing where I wanted to be a rebel, and I always wanted to support the underdog. So I would support Man City in front of my friends. I would support Liverpool, Arsenal,
Mm-hmm.
just to just to sort of get under their skin.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I have been supporting United. It's not the best time to be a United fan right now, but
Right.
yeah, still support them.
Tough times, tough times. Anyway, let's get started. Tell us about your journey. How do you get started with football? What age? And you're playing in your society, in your school?
Yeah, I actually started off just by kicking a ball. I was 10 years old. I was in Delhi.
Mm-hmm.
Considering my dad was in the Navy, so I shifted around quite a bit in my youth. Yeah, I just started by kicking a ball. I think I got infected with the sport, maybe when I was in school or
Mm-hmm.
in my hostel in Bishops Pune, by the way.
Ah,
Yeah, and after that I went to Delhi. The sort of the plague still, I don't know, it existed is not the right word, but I was just so infected by the sport, and then I just got to playing in my backyard, kicking the ball against the wall for hours on end. And this is something that I didn't see myself doing with any other thing, not with studies, not with no not sitting on the computer. It was just football since then. Yeah, I wasn't a good player at all. So much so that my even my when I came back to Bombay, even the school team was like, no, you're not good enough, we can't have you. I said, okay, no problem. I went
right.
home, cried a bit. I remember my mom keeps teasing me about this to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, ever since then, I think she gave me a lesson. She just said, okay, no problem, you just work hard, and with hard work, eventually, you still have a few more years to make it into the school team. So eventually you can get there. And I think I just listened to her advice. I worked really hard,
Mm-hmm.
and even though I didn't make it into the school team, safe to say, I think I became a decent player.
Right. Right. No, I mean, nowadays, even getting into the school team's hard, man. I mean, everyone, either cricket or football, it's really tough.
Indeed, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's I think especially with kids, I think parents also are involving their kids much earlier than, let's say, it was before. I think the parents are taking a much more active role. I
Sure.
think they realize the value, especially with IPL,
Mm-hmm.
ISL. They realize the value of income, popularity. Yeah, just becoming an alternative career. So I'm sure you would have seen that with tennis also, where
Right.
the enrollment start a lot earlier than it was before. So I
Sure.
think parents are just understanding the value in sports.
Of course, of course. That's great to see, and actually tough because we started, comparatively late, and then everyone's starting like 5, 6 years ahead of us, and basically they'll be way ahead as to, I mean, as compared to where we were when we were young.
Yeah, yeah, that's the early development. Nothing like early development, man. I
Right.
mean, today I was browsing through Twitter after I woke up, and I was just seeing this video by Tom Bayer. Tom Bayer does these. He's a big advocate for starting really early, starting at
Mm-hmm.
home, and informing and educating the parents about what they can do as to enhance their child's development in the sport of football. And he has these videos where his kids are doing these fascinating things with the ball, and their development is fascinating to see. So yeah, I think parents need to start, get the kids started as early as they can.
Sure, sure. So, why coaching though?
um the short answer would be that it's my passion.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's more to it. I compare it to a drug. People have addictions. I think I am addicted to the high um, that you get when a practice session goes perfectly the way you expected it to, or the way you designed it,
Mm-hmm.
and the behaviors you see are exactly the ones you planned for, and you can shape them into, or you can maneuver them into the direction you want them to go into. Yeah, I get a big kick out of that. I get a big kick from designing a training plan and then executing it perfectly. But of course, I mean, that's not the only kick, and um, I do like to help players. I do like to I'm just fascinated by the sport. So
Right.
I do like to. I just want to be involved in the sport in some way possible. I'll just give you a little background though, like how it started, and maybe that's your maybe that's going to be a next question, but I'll just jump in.
Sure.
Um, so I was trying to get into the Kenkre FC is like this. I think one of the biggest clubs in Bombay,
Mm-hmm.
and I was trying to get into their under 19 team, and I was practicing with them, with their under 18s and things, and they had a really good group of players, tough to get into their team. And I was also playing for my college. I was also playing with my friends. And yeah, I was trying really hard to get into that team, and I went in for the final selections, and I wasn't 100%. I'm sure you know it. I don't know if tennis has these things like trials, maybe especially if you want to make it into the state teams, or if you want to make it into a tournament. But yeah, I had to compete with 100 other people on that day,
Mm-hmm.
and it was as simple as I wasn't good enough, and the coach just told me, "That's it, never come back." And it wasn't the nicest way, where he explained to me why I wasn't good enough, or told me that what, do this and then we'll see. It would just never come back.
Right.
And yeah, I remember I took a local train back home. This was from VT to Vadala, and obviously trying to control my tears, and making sure people don't spot me. A young kid, 17-year-old, 18-year-old, crying in the train is is not the best sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually I went home. I didn't step out for 2 weeks, because I was too afraid to show my face, too afraid to tell my friends what happened. And yeah, I just couldn't stay away from the ground. Then I went back, tried to train. I picked up an injury, and then I'm like, okay, now what? What's the next step? And yeah, I started. I It was almost like a dream. I was lying on the bed, and I had this imagination, where I'm on the field and I'm actually taking a training session, and I'm instructing players on what they should do. I don't know where it came from. It just happened, and I'm like, I passed it off as, that's bullshit. That's never going to happen. I don't see myself doing that. I'm not good enough for that, and I'm too young enough. I'm too young for that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, eventually it just kept repeating, repeating, repeating. It was like this daydream that I kept having, and I'm like, okay, let's just give this a shot. And I had nothing to lose. I was injured. I was still young. I was doing my college degree, so I was like, okay, let's just go for this. And I went to a school. I approached the school. I said, can I coach? Made some money on the side, and yeah, things just started from there.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Um, I got lost in your story actually. I want to go back to it. So, um, that's the problem I feel. Coaches, a lot of them don't have that basic emotional intelligence, not to basically just to destroy another person psychologically. It just baffles me how people do that. You know, I'm pretty sure maybe if they had probably given you a word or two of advice, you could have probably used them, and I don't know, maybe things would have been a bit different. You may have, worked on them and gotten into the team.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think this is a problem with yesteryear coaches,
Right.
and it's just the environment that was like that. They didn't have to offer explanations because they were just players were just expected to figure it out.
Sure.
And I think this is a change that we're seeing right now, where like you said, I think you used a key term there, that coaches have to be more emotionally intelligent.
Sure.
They need to have that EQ factor when they're coaching, especially young kids,
Yeah.
kids that can get influenced. And I'm not big on that.
Mhm.
This is something that I struggle with. Also trying to be emotionally intelligent, trying to understand where the kid is coming from. And but yeah, I mean, it's just not a good sight when a player is upset, when a player is sad. That's just not a good sight. And I've made mistakes in my coaching as well, where I realized that I've maybe gone overboard with how much I expected from the player, or yeah, I've said something that I shouldn't have. So I've made these mistakes too. But yeah, it's just not a good sight when players upset. That's the worst feeling you can have as a coach.
Sure, sure. And yeah, when you mentioned tennis, I couldn't relate because in tennis, you either win or you lose. There's no random person seeing how you play and deciding if you're good enough. So that's one up tennis has over football, where it's completely based on you. If you're good enough, you're in. You're not good enough, if you don't beat the opponent, you're out. There's no biases, there's no seeing how you look, or if your coach for some reason has a grudge against you or your community or whatever. A lot of things happen, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
one thing that tennis has an up over football. But
that's
anyway.
that's that's fascinating. That's fascinating because I think in football, you like in tennis, I think you have to have the complete skill set,
Right.
whereas in football it's so complex that you can be not good in something, and your opponent or your teammates can be better in that, and as long as you guys can sort of complement each other.
Sure.
um yeah. I just feel the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So
Yeah, definitely. All right. So what was your family reaction? You want to go into coaching? How was that?
yeah, my dad comes from a naval background. My mother was a fashion entrepreneur, so my mother was quite understanding of it. And I think my dad, if it came from nowhere, I think my dad would have objected to it. But I think he saw for the last 7 8 years that this is the only thing I've been interested in. I started playing the sport in Delhi, which is where I was with my dad without my mom, and I was only 10 years old, and he saw that I'd been gripped by the sport.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom also knew of my struggles, and she knew that this is something that bothers him, or this is something that he's fascinated by. And I think I moved to England when I was 20.
Right.
And yeah, they didn't even stop me. They were just like, he's on his path, he's on his journey, and he's an adult, and yeah, let him decide what's best for him. And if it doesn't work out, he has to grind and find a way, because we're not going to be there for him throughout, trying to provide financial help. He has to find a way. So
Sure.
I think they've just given me that independence, and luckily it's worked out.
Right. Right. So what do you do in England, man?
um yeah, so I started coaching in the school I told you about, and then I took up a couple coaching gigs. So basically, pretty early in my coaching career, I decided that, okay, coaching is the way for me, is the way forward for me, and I see myself being in this sport. There was nothing for coaches in India. Of
Right.
course, I mean, we could do the licenses, and I think the only other thing close to that was, I think the NIS Patiala. That was the uh, only course or only university that was dedicated to sport professionals that wanted to make it in sport. Um, and I just looked abroad. I found some nice coaching courses. I applied in a few of them. I got into University of Wales Institute of Cardiff.
Okay.
Um, it was like a master's in sports coaching. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it was with a 1.5 year intensive course. And yeah, I have some not some good memories associated with it, and not some not so good very memories associated with it.
Right. 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 So, what were those memories, if you can share, or how was your experience overall?
Yeah. Overall, really good. I think it made me the person I am today. It gave me a lot of freedom and a lot of opportunities to make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I've grown definitely, and my personality is such that I'm quite an introvert. I don't speak until I'm spoken to. I find it difficult, if it's possible for me, to be in one room. Like we discussed before the podcast started, I have no problems in staying in one room and just being by myself
Right.
for the whole day. My mom keeps complaining about that, but that's just my personality.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that. But yeah, so just for an introverted, shy kid who finds it troublesome speaking with people, it was quite a challenging experience. So I went there. um, uh, yeah, we had to do a lot of I think the England or the Welsh model of studying is very different compared to the Indian education system, where
Mm-hmm.
you have to do a lot of research, you have to engage in a lot of discussions. That's how you learn, instead of just staying silent in class and going back home and yeah, studying for an exam and then
Right.
just blurting it out on a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm.
uh, I think it's very different. And I felt I felt that I was so young in my coaching career that didn't necessarily have all the experiences that was needed to um, to participate in those discussions, because there were coaches who came there who had 10 years of experience, 15 years of experience,
Ah.
7 years of experience. So
Mhm.
I just felt I was so young in my career that I couldn't participate to the best of my abilities. I mean, best then, but clearly not best now. I mean, if I went there right now, I would have I think learned more and also given more to the university. So
Mhm.
yeah, that was my experience, so to say. But the apart from the university, the lifestyle, one good thing was that I got to see what their sporting culture is like. I
Right.
did my I did my level 1 and my level 2 and a bunch of other. I did my goalkeeping level 1 and a bunch of other courses that I could manage to do in my time there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just learned a lot about, like, I could go into a Cardiff game, and there was still a good number of supporters on a weekday night or weeknight, sorry, um, as opposed to a weekend, and you couldn't tell the difference. And I could go to Man United for a Champions League game against, it could be a top tier team like a Real Madrid, or a team lower than that, and the crowd was still so supportive and incredible, like
Sure.
70,000, 80,000. That culture and the ethos is going to take, I think it's going to take a few years to get that in India with football.
Mhm. Sure. Sure. So you went to the UK for to study MSc coaching. What is the difference? I mean, you see players, you see, legends of the game, the Lampards and the Gerrards, directly taking up, coaching responsibilities. Of course, they do act as they have acted as understudies, with other coaches. But do you think that can be done since they've already played the game so much, or do you think having a degree like yours is essential?
um, I think it helps you.
Mm-hmm.
if you do a degree, I think it helps you to a certain extent. Like you can, in for me, for example, I want to do a sports science degree and I want to do a psychology degree. I don't know if I'll be able to do it in my lifetime, but I
Yeah.
want to do it only so I can contribute, and I have enough knowledge when we are in a discussion with the professionals. So I think football has evolved, where the manager or the coach doesn't have to be the one who has a say in everything. He's not going to be deciding what the physical program will be. He is not going to be deciding um, what the mental training should be like. I think the technical and tactical, for sure, he's the one who's going to take the lead in. But with the others, I think football has evolved where you have a team of dedicated professionals who are with you, and yeah, they can take the front role in that. I think Klopp does that really well. Uh, but to your question about whether you can do with it, I think you can do with it. There's a I can't remember the names of these coaches, but I've been reading the book Edge, and it talks about a lot of these coaches who gone out and found a different edge to
Mm-hmm.
compete with the best professionals in the country, and where they've lacked, they've made up for by um, by studying something different.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just give you examples. I can't recall the name of these coaches, but one coach went and studied did a degree in sports science from a leading university. One coach did a degree in leadership. One coach did a degree in economics and finance. So I think just because a coach is a role, a manager is a role where you have to be involved in so many different verticals in the football club. And I think the more knowledge you can gather, I think it just holds you and keeps you in a good stead when you're dealing with all these professionals from different verticals.
Sure, sure. So, yeah, I'm confused. I'm sure a lot of listeners would be confused. When you say football coach and when you say football manager, what's the difference? Or are they the same thing?
Um, I haven't reached manager position yet, so I wouldn't know so to say. But just from reading and just from watching football nowadays, I think the best example I can give is of Mikel Arteta,
Mm-hmm.
who is the Arsenal manager, and he was conferred the title of manager by by the Arsenal decision makers.
Right.
I think why they did it is because they saw that Mikel is not a man who is just going to take a keen interest on what happens on the pitch,
Mm-hmm.
but Mikel is a man that wants to evolve the club and wants to deal with everything that happens in the yeah, behind the scenes, in the background.
Sure.
And I think that would be your main role. I think a manager looks at all the different verticals. Someone like a Klopp, or someone like an Arteta. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is also thought of doing that role. Whereas a coach would just be someone who is interested in, yeah, in what happens on the pitch, and leaves everything uh, to the other members who are dealing with stuff behind the scenes.
Sure. Sure. So you get done with your degree and then you head over to Bangalore.
Yeah, that's true. I went to Bengaluru FC.
Wonderful. I guess they call the Blue Army.
Yeah. That was a great experience, and I think yeah, still really young in my coaching career. So to see firsthand how a first team environment operates, and almost like very very close to an English lower division setup, where you had Ashley and Pradyum really trying to make a change in the way a club is run.
Mm-hmm.
um and of course, like you said, the fans is just it was really nice to see, because I never saw fans, at least as many fans in Bombay, taking a vast interest in the club and supporting it on training days, even like just a normal training day, you would still see hundreds of fans on the ground. And it's just continued to grow, especially now that they moved to Kantirwa, and the way the atmosphere on match days is quite fascinating. They've done a really good job with the fans there.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'd say the top three when it comes to fans. Kerala, obviously, Cal, they're incredible. Do you think the top three, top four fans in India?
Yeah, yeah. I think Goan football would be included in that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's dwindling, because I think FC Goa is a relatively new club, and Goa has so many different clubs and different histories attached to those clubs, that FC Goa, I think, is going to take its own sweet time. But I think in Calcutta, where of course it's a sort of the same environment, where you have different clubs and
Right.
different fan bases attached to those clubs. But
Sure.
yeah, it's such a football crazy state that you can put a club anywhere in that state, and very likely that you are going to get visitors in your stadium. But yeah, no, but Bengaluru FC is up there. It has a really good connection with the fans.
Sure. So, what do you do there, Bangalore?
Yeah, I went there as an under 15 coach. I spoke to Richard Hood, who's now the coach of FCBU,
Right.
and they're taking part in the I League qualifiers. I spoke to him. I was actually doing my dissertation when I reached out to him, and he helped me out a bit. And he roped me in as an under 15 coach. Um, yeah, I was there for a couple of years, learned a lot. Yeah, I learned a lot from all the coaches, just with operations, from the senior team, looking at senior team trainings, the sort of experience they had with Ashley, Ali, the goalkeeping coach, Pradyum, of course. Yeah, but mainly just involved in training the under 15s, making sure that they have a good pathway to the under 19s. um, yeah, we ended up going for the MUFC tournament,
Mhm.
where we did really well as well. um, so yeah, but yeah, mainly just involved in on the pitch activities. And of course, I also did some work with their under 12s. I also did some work with their soccer school. So it was just my the 2 years where I really had to work hard on getting grass under my feet, and make sure that I got enough coaching hours to lead me into my next role.
Wonderful, wonderful. Where you go from there?
Um, I immediately went and did my B license first,
Mm-hmm.
and then I took some time off. I was penniless, and struggling, but I didn't mind it, to be honest. It's good to from the daily hustle. It's good to take some time off, and I still believe that. It just gave me a chance to reflect. I like made a 5-year plan for myself, and yeah, thought of what I wanted to do next. An opportunity came knocking with U Dream, which was uh, which was a Tata run setup, and it also had an affiliation with TSG Hoffenheim, where they sent kids to Germany, and yeah, they had like a team, and they would train with and play against German academies. So yeah, I just did some scouting for them. Then I worked with FCB Escola, so that was a good stint. I worked there for a couple months, and obviously I'll jump into the RFIC story where I'm currently working. But yeah, just because RFIC came calling, so I sort of lost interest in my role at FCB Escola, and I took the opportunity here.
Sure. So, just before we move ahead to RFYC, what do you think of these tie-ups with these European clubs? Setting up training camps in India, and having these exchange. I won't say exchange programs, but basically programs where you can go down to their club and train for a month or two. Are they really working? Are they good for exposure? What do you think about it?
I look at it as something that is going to enhance the child's development, because what we can't offer here in terms of competitive matches, and let's say better infrastructure and a higher quality training setup, I think that player will get that in abundance there. Although that's not necessary for every organization. Obviously, you need to do your homework with which organization you send him to. But if you're sending him to a decent organization, let's say that like TSG Hoffenheim, um, you're going to get some quality with the coaches. You're going to get quality with in Germany. Even if you play in the fourth division, you're going to get competitive matches because the German league uh, is super developed. Yeah, that's my stance on it. That at the end, if the organization is good and it has good coaches, it has a good setup, it has a lot of different academy teams that are competing in good leagues. I think there's the player is just going to it's just going to help him because he gets a new experience, and sometimes that experience, it worked for me when I went to England. So I think I can see the same for the players as well.
Great, great. So yeah, definitely. I mean, a friend of mine had gotten selected, to play. I won't say for the youth team, but for a 1 week camp in United, I guess 10 years back, and it was a wonderful experience for him. So it's definitely great.
Yeah, it just opens your eyes, and you see you can be a big pond in a small fish, and once you go into these clubs, you realize you're just a small pond, you're just a small fish in a big pond.
Sure.
And you have to um, yeah, you just have to it just opens your eyes to what you need to do, and how you can make the cut if you want to if you want to reach your dreams.
Sure. Sure. So, what's where do you go next? You came down to Bombay.
Correct. Yeah. I finished my I have a really interesting story to tell you with RFIC.
Okay, first of all, for our listeners,
Yeah.
what's RFYC?
Okay. RFIC is Reliance Foundation Young Champs. It's a it's an academy. That was started by Neeta Ambani. The sole idea of RFIC was to sort of change the way academies in India are run. Not to say that the other academies are doing a poor job, or nothing to say about the other academies, but yeah, just to change the game, really, to sort of make the academy pathway and program really professional. Um, um, yeah, set up a really good infrastructure, not only for the RFIC Academy, but even for the Indian team. They need to use it, or other teams in Bombay. But yeah, the plan was just to change the game with regards to academy football. So yeah, that's what RFIC is, and that's how it started. It came about right after the ISL started. So yeah, what they did is they conducted a trial for a bunch of kids from these 8 ISL clubs. And yeah, they started out with, I think, 23 players in their first batch. And now, um, before some players actually moved out to ISL clubs, I think there were 81 kids. And this is the 5th year that the academy has been. They've just, yeah, they ended their 5th year and moved into their 6th year. So and I think 8 or 9 players have now made the move onto ISL club. So it's just it's been quite a journey for the academy and for myself too.
Great, great. So yeah, get back to your story that you had.
Yeah, so I had got my gig at FCB Escola, which was in Gurgaon.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was ready to make the move there. I had spoken to them. I decided everything. They're a great setup. um, they do a lot of good things. And during my unemployed days, before I got the gig at UDream, um, I while I was making my 5-year plan, I actually sent a bunch of emails to everyone on my LinkedIn list or anybody that I could get in contact with, from through my friends, through colleagues, anybody, and I must have sent out at least, I don't know, over 100 emails, in that time, just waiting for responses. And of course, I got a few responses. Some worked out, some didn't. And I got a response from Pete Hubers, who was the technical director at the ISL grassroots program.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you know what, we're doing this thing at RFIC. Why don't you come down? I'll be in Bombay sometime in January. So why don't you just come down and
Right.
meet me? And it was my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I'm here. We're playing at Father Agnell's ground in Vashi. Why don't you come down and meet us? I said, okay, no problem. I went there and ended up meeting him. And I was dressed. I was supposed to go for a birthday party, and I
Right.
was dressed in jeans and a really, let's just say, a really suave sort of t-shirt that
Mm-hmm.
one wouldn't associate with wearing on the ground.
Sure.
And yeah, not maybe he appreciated that because he's from Holland, so he could understand that there is yeah, everyone has their own freedom of choice and decisions that they can make when it comes to attire. And I met him, we spoke for a bit, and I was just blown away by the intensity that the RFIC players played at. Like, it was fascinating for me, and I hadn't seen that anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And the football they played, the way they played, the coaching from the sidelines, you could see that there was something different in the air. You could
Mm-hmm.
just sense that, because obviously I had been involved in Indian football for the last 3 years, and obviously made my way playing before that, before I went to England. So I knew that there was something different going or brewing here, and I wanted to be a part of it. So yeah, I went to right after that, I went to FCB Escola, but my mind and my heart was set on RFIC. I'm like, that's where I really want to be. Again, like I said, nothing, no disrespect to FCB Escola, they are a good setup.
Sure.
But yeah, RFIC is where I wanted to be. And luckily for me, they called me for a trial. Safe to say, it wasn't the best it wasn't the best training session that I took,
Mm-hmm.
because I got a topic that was really difficult for me. I hadn't done it ever.
Right.
But I guess they saw something in me, and I think mostly they saw that the kid wanted to be there. And yeah, that was the main reason why I think I was chosen into this program as a coach.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well done. And what have you been learning in this environment of yours?
Oh man, it's too much to tell you in one, like, one trail of words,
Yeah.
or in a few sentences. But just off the top of my head, I think I've learned a lot with regards to designing my training sessions. I've learned a lot with periodization. These are all things that I obviously thought that I was thinking about, but clearly not enough. I learned a lot about the mental side of the game,
Mhm.
that football is a feeling sport and a mental sport as much as it is a technical, tactical, and a physical sport. Yeah, I learned a lot about dealing with an organization. Although obviously football is a team sport, I've been a very individual guy. Like, my goals are very, okay, I want to reach the top, I want to be a player, and even when I played, it was always about me, and I didn't really think from a second person's perspective. But I think this organization has really made me realize that, yeah, you can't work alone. You have to learn to work with a group. But yeah, just off the top of my head, some key lessons in my time here.
Mm-hmm. Great. And okay, I won't get into detail, but they're doing some good work, huh?
They're doing some fascinating work. I would recommend this organization to 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 anybody. They just played earlier this year. They had this, like, a tournament where they invited clubs from all over the country. They invited clubs from England. So Man United came, Chelsea came,
Right.
Southampton came. The year before that, they had organized a tournament with Arsenal. So yeah, and I got to coach against that. It was such a good moment for me, where I was the opposition coach, and we won, and we did really well. It was so, like, such a proud feeling, something that, you know, I didn't envisage doing when I started out, and I've been one of those few lucky ones in the country to actually do these things already so young into my coaching career. So yeah, quite proud, and they're doing a fascinating job. They are and hopefully the players that pass out of this academy will be the ones to actually shine that light and
Mm-hmm.
prove that RFIC is actually doing a great job. I don't want to, uh, blow my own trumpet here, but um, I definitely think RFIC is doing some excellent work in the youth, and hopefully it'll be seen in a few years' time.
Mm-hmm. Great. And what do you think is needed right now? Grassroots.
Um, More RFICs if it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the short answer. But yeah, long answer. I think I think the more organized academies you have, the better it is. I think the Golden Baby Leagues is a good set. It's a good start already. You get registered players. You get players competing against one another. So that's a good start already. I think kids in India need more organized competition, and not to say that the I League isn't good enough, but
Mm-hmm.
I think the I League only has a few matches that you can play throughout the year, let's say 10, 15, but and mainly over a, a few months time. So let's say in 3 months or 4 months you get done with your I League, but what about the other 8 months? And that's where I think we can have way more competition. Apart from competition, I think obviously you need better coaches, but I think Savio and his team at the coach education department are doing fantastic. They're changing the game. I think eventually in India you will see a lot of coaches, and I have already seen a big rise in the number of young coaches, especially on social media, who are doing some great work. Some coaches who are even going abroad, yeah, changing the game, learning as much as they can before they come back to the country. So yeah, I see a lot of change happening in the future, but mainly competition, mainly infrastructure if it's possible, coach education. That's just going to better coaches make better players. So yeah, off the top of my head, these three things.
Perfect. Perfect. So, any advice for people starting out, parents? What should their plan be? Football or studies? Oh no, that's a pretty obvious question for a coach. But yeah, any advice in general for the parents?
For the parents, I wouldn't. I think let the kid do what he wants to do, but I think what you can do is involve the player at a really young age, like get him familiar with the ball, and that's as simple as looking at YouTube and just teaching him a few techniques with the ball. Doesn't mean that you have to enroll him in an academy. I think if you just spend an hour, half an hour, if you just have some balls lying around the house and encouraging the kid to play, to kick it, that's just going to help him as much as you can do with the player in your backyard, uh, right from when he's at a yeah, really young age. It's just going to help the player. The older he gets, I think you can afford to take a back seat and let the player drive his own development. Of course, you have to be there as a guide and help them, like show them the light, show them the way. But yeah, let the player, because I firmly believe that look, my parents and a lot of parents don't force their kid to get into football. I think at the end of the day, it has to be the player's choice. um, but yeah, yeah, this is what you can do mainly. And be a guide for them right at the start of their journey. You can encourage them to play and teach them a few things, but let them go towards the end. And with your question about football and education, don't let education go. That would be my thing, because the harsh reality of football is that uh, in England, 12 out of every 10,000 players will make it in football. that and that's a really tough number, man. And I think in India that number is higher. But don't let education go, because I think the trend is changing in India, where education and educated players, that's something that I've seen at the academy. Mostly educated players and having a good education just helps the players in solving problems. It helps the players in finding solutions on the pitch. So yeah, the more he learns in school, the better he's going to get on the pitch as well. And it just opens more doors. So don't let education go, no matter what.
Perfect. Perfect. Saksham, thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Great learnings. I'm sure people would take a lot from from the episode. No direct, I mean, apart from a few advices, they can learn from your experiences and act accordingly. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, man. Thanks for doing this. This is the first time I'm doing a podcast. So I don't know if I'm going to do any more in the future. But yeah, I mean, I'm just happy to share what I can.
Hopefully, man, you make it big and then you do bigger interviews with mainstream media.
I'm a shy guy. I wish I don't have to do that, but I do want to make it big. So yeah, thanks for that.
Great. So where can people get in touch with you? Any queries? What's your social media?
Yeah, you can get in touch with me on Twitter. My handle is SakshamKakkar24. I think if you just type Saksham, then you should find me, because I don't see a lot of Sakshams on Twitter. But yeah, I post some content out there, some analysis, mostly my own thoughts. So yeah, that's not a bad place to find me.
Great, great. And all right, so we'll have your Twitter handle on the show notes. And Saksham, thank you so much, and hope you come back, on the show for discussing a few other topics that I have in mind.
Sure, man. Sure, pleasure. Thanks. You're a good host. So
Thank you.
yeah,
Thanks.
thanks a lot for having me.
Cheers, buddy. Take care.
All right, see you.